I'd love to introduce Rosemary Ariada Kuiper from Adobe, Keegan Fisher from Providence Health, Lauren Villa from the Pacific Business Group on Health, and our moderator, Seth Cohen from Castlight Health. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Can we give one more round of applause to Maeve for that fantastic presentation? Really well. Well, I'm really excited to moderate our panel this morning. We have a number of great speakers, so let's get right to it. So I want to first turn to Rosemary and have her introduce herself and share a little bit about her experience with Castlight.
Great, thank you, Seth. So my name is Rosemary Ariada Kuiper, and I am the Senior Director of Rewards at Adobe Systems. I have responsibility for global compensation, global benefits, and mobility. Our relationship started with Castlight at the point that we decided we wanted to introduce a health savings account, medical-based program to our employee population. We knew that in order to get our employees to really engage and understand the real value proposition behind the health savings account, that we were going to need a partner that could help us provide some transparency into the cost and quality of the various services that a number of our employees were faced with as they were making decisions. And so as we embarked on our journey to find the right partner, we'd heard quite a bit in terms of Castlight's capability relative to that space. The other thing that we were looking at too was in really understanding the demographics and the fact that we were a software company. We knew that the overall experience in terms of how people interact with technology was going to be super important. So not only were we looking for a resource that had the specific tools around transparency, we also needed to ensure that the experience from a technology perspective and a UI was going to be suitable for our employee population. And so there started our relationship.
That's great. Thank you, Rosemary, for joining us today. Keegan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Keegan Fisher. I work for Providence Health and Services, and that's a Catholic health system based out of Seattle. We are an organization with 35 hospitals and 500 physician clinics, diverse group, and healthcare employers tend to be an unlikely candidate for transparency. And so my story is a little bit different, and I would contend that our employees, we call them caregivers, deserve the same resources that every other industry does. So in 2013, much like our industry, we were going through a lot of turmoil and transformation. Personally, our benefits team could have used Castlight Elevate at that point because we made the decision to become the first health system in the country to become full replacement account-based. And so in most every state except for California, we offer just an HRA and an HSA medical plan. And it was really a paradigm shift where many of our patients were coming to us with questions about cost, and we were ill-equipped to be able to even have those the answers that it took. And so our senior leadership really felt strongly that our own caregivers should have the same resources that our patients do, and better understand what our patients are navigating through. And as Gio mentioned, it is a complex system. And for the last 3 years, I know Providence has been working hard to make it easier on our employer groups, and many of the employees that you represent probably are patients of our hospitals and clinics. So we wanted to provide a best-in-class solution. Castlight certainly is that. And so what excuse do you have to not offer it? We had to overcome that hurdle with a lot of physicians, very concerned. I think Maeve mentioned that you want a resource to be able to find a provider, a new one that maybe you don't like. Well, if you are that physician and you are working side-by-side colleagues that are now seeing you, it is a different conversation. And so we had to work through that, but by streamlining our services and offerings. Healthcare is changing dramatically, and Providence is one of those groups that's evolving with everybody else.
Thank you. Lauren?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Vela. I'm the Senior Director of Member Services for the Pacific Business Group on Health. PBGH is a very large employer coalition. We have amongst our membership some of the largest employers in this country. I'm so thrilled that some of you are right here in the audience with us today. We work with our members to support their mission in improving the quality of care and moderating costs. And what we know to be true is that there are a few strategies in play for all of you and for our membership that really make a difference. And one of them is transparency. Transparency in both quality and cost. And we also know that our members are really recognizing that the time is now for them to involve themselves in the delivery system, either through their plan or not, but to work directly with ACOs to promote the use and invest in primary care, and that these sort of strategies are the ones that are not only going to engage your patients and your members, but also get them better quality care and impact your cost for the long haul. So we have as many strategies amongst our membership as we do members, frankly, and we like to promote an environment for them to learn from each other, share learnings with each other, and together leverage the purchasing power of each other to make impact and change in the delivery system.
Great. Thank you. Well, each of you talked about changes in either the provider healthcare industry, Keegan, or changes in your own plan designs that have been a catalyst for the new solutions you've introduced. So what do you think, or what would you characterize to be some of the biggest changes in the healthcare landscape that prompted you to make changes in your benefit strategy? Rosemary, should I say?
Yeah, so for us, it was clearly the impending Cadillac tax, right? So as a company, we are very conscientious of the spend that we have. My CFO in particular has a very specific target that he likes us to stay within as we look at our overall spend. And as we were partnering with our consulting firms and the actuarians and actually looking at the liability that the Cadillac tax was going to potentially have on us, it became really apparent that we needed to do something about it. And as we looked at the detail, what became apparent was that our PPO plans in particular were the ones that were triggering this particular liability for us. And so that became the catalyst for us wanting to introduce an HSA plan and really needing to get our employees migrated over to that plan.
Keegan, doesn't sound like that was necessarily the impetus for you guys.
I think Rosemary and I have some similarities, but we were pretty segmented as an organization as far back as 3 years ago. So we had 12 different medical plans across 5 states, regional programs that had the best intention to meet the needs of the caregivers in those markets. But we wanted to provide an equitable plan where a nurse in Anchorage had the same structure and premium contributions as one in Spokane. And so by introducing account-based or consumer-driven health plans, we went a whole year without any access to information. And so good luck trying to do that and say with a straight face that you are trying to introduce consumerism, but not giving the tools. We went through that, and we're delighted to have Castlight now. And we have a long ways to go. We're not there. And we have much to overcome in terms of we still have a complex environment, and I hope we can make it easier on what is a clinical team, the caregivers that are providing patient care. It's a very stressful environment, and they don't want a platform or a solution that is nothing but easy to use. And happy to hear what Maeve is doing on that front.
Lauren, you said you're a champion of transparency and consumer tools as well. Is the Cadillac tax the driver for your membership? Is it something else?
It is. Of course it is. It's also the ACA providing cover. So even 2 years ago, before folks started having the Cadillac tax looming quite so imminently, I was hearing members say, look, this is an opportunity for us. We can share with our employees that the Affordable Care Act is making changes in the marketplace, and that we want to make changes with the market. And so it's a great opportunity. What I'm hearing from my members, whether their demographics are highly paid high-tech folks or whether their demographic are not so highly paid retail folk, shifting cost is really not the primary objective here. That's really not what they want to see happen. What they want to see happen is lower cost in the delivery system. So there are employers who are taking advantage of opportunities not only to shift costs, not just to share the cost, but also to impact the cost. Things by smart Center of Excellence programs, things like targeted share savings programs with select provider groups. These are the types of programs, and you know, it takes pinpointing an opportunity and diving into a locality that will really impact, again, not sharing cost through a benefit design switch, but actually impacting the costs that you're incurring.
Great. So, and this will be for Rosemary and Keegan, as you guys evaluated different strategies for addressing each of your unique challenges, Cadillac tax, the consolidation of your benefits plans, you know, why did you select Castlight?
Yeah, so I would say for us, you know, super important. I think it's some of the themes that Keegan touched on as well. In addition to having the basic functionality of really being able to have a mechanism to easily provide transparency around cost and quality, it was really around the employee experience. It's a big deal for us culturally as a company that when we integrate new technologies, that they be easy to use, that they meet a certain type of standard when it comes to the interaction and the UI. And you know, we get a lot of criticism when we introduce basic functionality. It's not about that. It's about the entire experience that somebody is going through as they're engaging with any type of platform. And so as we looked at different platforms that were available to us, it was not the basic functionality that wooed us, but that overall experience that people had when leveraging Castlight relative to some of the other products.
Go ahead.
Very similar. Yeah, I think Castlight looks a lot more like Amazon.com than an insurance.com. And I was going to say A, but that wouldn't be fair because theirs is one of the best. But we needed to also partner with Castlight to win over our physician groups. And Castlight being a physician-led organization with a clinical team that was embedded in the sales process, and also helping the providers know that this is a freight train that's left the station. You can either get on board or whatever else comes with that. And we chose to get on board, and our providers really have, I think, expected that they all have access to it just like their patients.
Great. Well, I want to come shortly to those outcomes and what you guys have seen. But I'll start with Lauren on this one. You know, you're all up on this stage because you're leading change, encouraging change. I think we're all in this room eager to make change. And what I often hear from employers that we talk to is that it's hard. Right? It's easy to fund existing line items and budgets. But doing some of these new programs, centers of excellence strategies, consumer platforms like Castlight, that's new spend, right? How do you make the case for those kind of things? How do you convince your organization to adopt these changes and innovations? So Lauren, do you want to start and share what your members are doing on that?
Yeah, I have. So honestly, it's so fun being in a situation where you get to talk with a lot of different employers and hear some of their strategies. And benefit managers are so smart. You know, you save a little bit of money on a program, that's great. Claim it, own it. That's a little bit of money that you should be able to keep to build another program so that you can save a little bit more money, so that you can build another program. So I guess the message that I would share with those of you from whom I've not already heard this message is own the savings and keep it within your department. Don't send it back. I like to say to my group, you know, this is a bullet on your senior leadership slide deck at the end of the year, right? We saved $250,000 doing X, and we'd like to take that $250,000 and we'd like to do Y. So these are the low fruit opportunities, which would be another pledge I would say is, gosh, so many low fruit opportunities, site of administration programs, for instance. You know, this is not going to save 25% of your spend. This might save 1% of your spend. This might save, depending on how big you are, $1 million. It might save $150,000. But own it and keep it for the next venture.
Okay. Keegan, I mean, you had clearly a number of challenges getting physicians on board with these changes. So how did you do it? You know, best practices you can share?
They're heavy sigh. I think that the only way to position it is that we as benefits folk said we wanted to have members that understood and were engaged in going through this journey with us and representing the plan, and we asked for it and we got it. So this seems to be table stakes, that if you don't offer transparency and you have an HRA or HSA plan, folks aren't armed to at least know where their own dollars are going. And that was really even for the provider community that was a bit uneasy with it, or just, and it's changed obviously now, but knowing that they personally also had an HSA account that could roll over each year, and they shared the same interest as us.
Those are key people you had to convince, obstacles to overcome in this journey?
Yeah, so I would say we probably had two. You know, at the initiation, it was getting our executive staff to understand that we needed this change, that there was going to be a cost implication to that, and getting them on board. And I would say, generally speaking, as we kind of showed them the financials, we were able to move them along. Second, and part of the executive staff was kind of a subgroup of this second kind of obstacle, was the employee population. So I think unique to probably, or maybe it's not unique to high tech, but I think different in high tech is that you've got a population of employees that generally tend to be highly compensated. And so typically the story about the money you're going to save and how it's going to help Adobe doesn't resonate. They really don't care unless it's going to somehow personally be beneficial to them. And it's a lot more of emphasis is placed on the convenience of things. And so we knew that kind of with that inertia factor, trying to get employees to engage and pay attention to the fact that we were introducing this new plan was going to be somewhat of a challenge for us. And so we did put some effort and energy into a couple of different areas. One, I would say, was all around the marketing and the promotions. We opted to outsource that and not try to drive and deliver that in-house. And so we partnered with some very niche companies in terms of really doing some high-touch, very personalized communications. We leveraged the fact that there was a lot of buzz in the media around the Affordable Care Act. And so there was a lot of curiosity already around what does this mean to Adobe? What does this mean to me? So we kind of jumped on that bandwagon to kind of set the story and begin some of the socialization. From a plan design perspective, we simplified. So we too also offered a number of different offerings. And in doing that, what we realized is you know, the things that people care about are, what's my deductible? What's the premium? What are the out-of-pocket maximums? Roughly what's covered, right? Like everything else is too much for them. They can't absorb it. And so we tried to look across all of our plans and really focus on those key areas and standardize everything else, so that as they were comparing, they could really focus in on these few areas. And from a design perspective, we made the HSA a no-brainer, right? Like if you took the time to engage and look at what it was that we were sharing with you, it would become a no-brainer in terms of which option you needed to select. But again, the key was, how do you get them to pay attention to this? And so I would say the third thing that we leveraged and probably was the most powerful thing for us was we've got advocates in our community. I would call them, they're influencers. They're people that people pay attention to, other employees not associated with HR or management of the company. And what we did is we reached out to these guys and we said, hey, would you let us have the opportunity to share with you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and for yourselves assess whether this, you know, is really the right decision and a win-win for both you, the employee, as well as Adobe, the company. And that was, I found, the most profound impact that we had, because they became the advocates and ambassadors for us. And it didn't matter what HR was saying. If these guys were validating it, people were going to buy into it. And it was viral for us.
So these were business leaders and...
not even leaders, employees.
And they were willing to have a conversation on healthcare.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you talked a little bit about how it's hard to get employees to pay attention. So let's talk about results and let's talk about engagement for a second, right? So tell us a little bit of the results that you're seeing. And then for all three of you, I'd love to share any best practices you've learned on getting people engaged with platforms like Caslet. wants to
You
start.
want me to take it?
Sure, go ahead.
So I think from a results perspective, we had tremendous results. The first year that we rolled out the HSA, we were able to migrate 63% of our population over, which surpassed, our expectations. We were looking at a 20% migration. Wow. So really blew it out. We're now into year 2. We're up to 85%. I'm happy to say that I'm officially under 200 employees in our PPO plans, and so we're probably going to shut that down for 2016. I've got 2 executives that are still sitting in that plan that I need to go have individual conversations with. Most likely their spouses, but we'll gently
do you want to give
remind
us their
them,
names?
Yeah. We'll work on that. So the results have been tremendous. More importantly, I think we've been able to show financially the longer term impact that's going to have should the Cadillac tax come into place as well too. So I think from that perspective, it's helped from a consumerism perspective. We are definitely seeing the utilization. I will say initially our focus was really on introducing the HSA plan. So the transparency tools really became more of a second half, year 2 endeavor for us, because we really wanted to focus our efforts on helping people understand why the HSA was the right plan for them. And so we spent much more of our time initially on that. Then what we did is we said, okay, now that you have this, our value proposition was this is more than just a medical plan. This is really a longer term savings vehicle. And with a population and a demographic like we had, we felt like there was a great story there. And so we really wanted to start spending the time talking to them about, like, it's really important that you optimize these accounts. They can be just more than a medical savings account for you. And so that's when the relationship with Castlight came into play, and we really started to go after it from a marketing perspective. Typically what we find at Adobe is incentives work well for us. So initially, just again to get people exploring and playing with the tool, we did do some incentive options where we had people go in there, they watched a video, we did a little video that kind of explained how Castlight works, and we also had them do some search. So we had them complete a number of tasks related to exploring the site, and in exchange for doing that, we gave them $25 gift cards to Amazon. And so it was a great way. And I would say that right now we've got roughly about 6,900 employees in the US. I mentioned earlier that 83% of that population is participating in the HSA, and I would say half of that population is actively engaged with Castlight. So
Great.
Really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lauren, any great best practices of engagement that come to mind in your membership?
Well, I mean, certainly these things that have been discussed up here, I guess I would say when you're visiting with a lot of different companies, you get a sense of culture, and this sounds quite corny, I know, but companies do carry and promote their own culture. So how do you promote a culture of sort of excitement and high energy amongst your population to get them to want to partner with you, to want to make change in how they're receiving and you're delivering health care? And that's the holy grail. So I love, and I often quote Rosemary in her story about the focus groups, finding the thought leaders within her company, which may not be in HR, and in fact, frankly, probably aren't. Find who they are, talk to them, get them on your side, win them over. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's really, really productive. So you're really changing the culture, and you can feel it when you walk into an organization, what their culture is all about, and the energy around healthcare, around staying healthy, around using the tools that are available, around how cool it is to have an employer who's making these tools available to you. The ways that they're advertised and promoted within lobbies and on health fair days, and all those sorts of, like I said, kind of corny things, but at the end of the day, I think they make a difference.
Well, I guess I'm corny too, because I buy into that. And I think it's a good example of what Maeve talked about earlier. You need to know the currency too, right? If you're talking to a steel manufacturing plant,
right,
and they're building components for cars, and you say how far to drive to save money on a
right,
pickup truck, that resonates. Or I know another mining client of ours, they make concrete. They don't lay concrete, they actually make the stuff. And these guys work in quarries. They are guys primarily. And we tried to provide, I remember the employer provided a $100 HSA, guaranteed a $100 HSA contribution for anyone who signed up with Castlight. That was one of the richest incentives we've seen, and it bombed. We got maybe 10% of people to adopt. We then changed it and gave away free lunch pails. The lunch pails cost, I think, Scott's in the room, probably $8, $9, and it quadrupled our engagement in a week because people really wanted lunch pails. And so you need to know the currency that works. So.
What was on the lunch pail?
So it's Scott Matthews. I'm going to give a plug for him. Is leading an engagement workshop after this, and you can ask him all about that. All right, bringing it back to the panelists. Shifting gears for a second, Keegan, you mentioned you're adding dental and pharmacy, and we talk about the importance of providing that one-stop shopping experience. And Maeve introduced Castlelight Elevate, our new behavioral health solution. So I'm curious, Lauren, for your membership, for your employee populations, is behavioral health a big topic? Is that something you guys are thinking about, and what are folks doing to address these problems? Rosemary?
So it is a big issue for us. I think similar to the stats that were shared, the top searches that come up for us typically are around psychological or psychiatric services. So we're seeing that. If we look at some of the stats that we have either based on RX or medical services provided, we're definitely seeing depression, stress, chronic illnesses associated with skeletal disorders, all kind of surfacing. And we believe that a lot of these are, if not direct, certainly an indirect function of kind of the work environment and the pace at which we, push our employees. So absolutely, it is an area of opportunity for us. The visibility has not been great. I think we're doing a little bit better as it relates to our EAP services. I think we have a 12% utilization, but still not great when you look at the number of individuals that are actually struggling with some of these various conditions. So we definitely see it as an opportunity and are excited to learn more about Elevate and the opportunities there.
Cool.
A similar situation. I think this is an opportunity or an area where we as employers can do more and help remove the stigma with behavioral health. And we still have a population that are afraid of talking about this. And you probably even have team members who don't want to let you know what's going on in their life because it portrays potentially a vulnerability or weakness if they mention that they have this challenge. So I think Elevate's a great opportunity. We do have a caregiver assistance program that is underutilized, and when people do access, we use value options, and I never hear that they had a bad experience, that it was worthwhile, and I think this helps tap into that resource much better than we do today.
I think that, the irony is that people feel like they're so stressed and they're so overwhelmed that they don't have time to get the help that they need.
Yeah.
So how do employers make it convenient and easy for their employees to do that? And in the past year or two, there's been this movement to bring mental health professionals on site. When I first heard about folks doing this, I was like, oh man, I don't know, really? Are folks gonna really be able to participate and engage like right there, right on campus where people can see them walking into an office? And it turns out, yeah, they do. Those on-site mental health professionals are really kept busy, and it addresses some of the access issues. So, because I think actually that's another issue is access to mental health professionals in our geography. It's a big problem. When I talk with my members about what are some of their biggest issues, mental health always comes up. The hidden costs are scary, and I think benefit managers recognize that mental health challenges are costing them more than they even know.
Great. We have time for just one question or so from the audience. I've got another question too, but if anyone's got one, we have a microphone if you want to raise your hand. I'll give someone a second to think about that. Well, if you do, we'll come back to you. Just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone over, and I'll ask my other question, which is what's next for you guys? You're all doing really exciting things, and would love to hear what's on your plate for 2016 and beyond.
Yeah. So I think for us, we continue to want to engage our employee population in helping us to address what we believe is a social issue fundamentally in this country around healthcare costs and the management of that. So I think we'll continue on our path to make it easier for our employees to navigate and help them become consumers of their health care. I think kind of our ask and our needs are going to be that as we look to continue to partner with various providers and other in the market, we're really going to look at those that can help enhance that overall experience. So it's a path of education, but it's also a path of integration and simplification and making things personal and relevant. So a lot of the stuff that was addressed earlier today, we're not going to be able to get people to engage and care about this stuff if we can't bring it home to them and do that in an easy way. And so that, I think, is the biggest task that we all have as a community going forward.
That's great.
Well, I think ACO networks will continue to be a topic for everybody. Tiered networks and identifying partners who will either exit your network or move up a level. Cathlight's a way to help with that, I think. An area that we're not, we provide funding to the HRAs and HSAs through a health incentive activity each year. We've done biometric screenings and online health assessments and journeys, and this year we're doing something a little bit different, and we're offering a palliative care benefit and education about helping you plan your own advanced care directives and plan for when you or your family are dealing with that aspect of your end-of-life care. So a little scary, but we're working with our physician team within one of our institutes to help us create this new concept.
Well, oh gosh, please don't misunderstand the love behind this comment, but your pain is our opportunity. As a coalition, we want nothing more than to engage our members in actually making impact. And so now is the time for us to be able to work with you, because we know that you guys, more than, gosh, in the past decade, are really energized to do something. So I guess my pledge to you is find an advisor. If you're one of our members, we'd like to help you. We feel like we can help you with that. If you're not, find an advisor. Find a focus on an objective. Get it done. Measure it. Don't be afraid to do it. And the other thing I would say is, because I've seen it happen again and again amongst my membership, you might be very, very concerned about the noise you're going to hear from your employees. Almost all the time, really, no kidding, almost all the time, you hear less noise than you think you're going to. So,
yeah, that's great.
I would close on that.
Well, can we give a round of applause to our panelists? Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.